Welcome to the Maura Sweeney podcast. Maura is an international speaker, Huffington Post contributor, and the trademarked ambassador of happiness. In 10 minutes or less, Maura weaves clever anecdotes, insightful questions, and personal stories to challenge your mindsets and enable you to live happier from the inside out. Here's Maura with today's podcast for you.
Can you be a bridge? Well, if you're on a path to living happy from the inside out, today's question may actually be the impetus to compel, inspire, and maybe even empower you to take on that role. Can you be a bridge? The implied answer is yes, you can. But a deeper question is this: will you be a bridge? And would you like to be a bridge? Before we get started, let me give you two definitions of a bridge so that you will understand where I'm coming from. The first is a very obvious definition for the word, a bridge. It's a structure spanning and providing passage over a waterway, a railroad, or another obstacle. Think about that. Let's say probably the most obvious being two pieces of land that are separated and one side cannot get to the other because there's a gulf or there's a valley or there's a running river or an ocean. But the bridge is something that spans above both of them and manages to connect the two. It's a great word picture. Beyond that, if you happen to have a musical background like I do, this is another definition that may also give you an interesting perspective on what a bridge is. In musical terms, a bridge is a thin, upright piece of wood in some stringed instruments that supports the strings above the soundboard. Now, you don't have to be a musician to understand this, but I could remember very well, years ago, I would play my classical guitar. The guitar is made of 6 strings, and they're all pulled very closely in line. But the thing that keeps each one of these strings, each one of which has its own distinct sound, different from the other strings, the piece that keeps all of the strings in line, separated and yet managing to work together and individually so that they can be distinctly heard as well as heard in tandem with some of the other strings in a harmonic type way, is the bridge. It's just this piece of wood that manages to have grooves in it that allows each one of those individually sounding strings to have their space, have their place, have their distinct identity, and yet be in a position so that they can be played in tandem with other strings beside them. Now think about that as the role of you. You may not be a musical instrument, but imagine if you were to see your life in some different terms. Instead of seeing it as an individual string that has just one sound, and maybe you're great at that one sound, imagine if there's another part of you that would like to extend itself across the barriers and the differences of other strings, meaning other people. Maybe meaning other religions, other cultures, other races, other economic groups. There are so many ways that we can divide ourselves in society, kind of like the land mass that's separated from other land masses in the idea of the original bridge. Each one of us, whether we're aware of it or not, has the possibility, the capability, and the potential, if we so choose and have an intent to do so, to become a bridge where we might be able to span differences and stand in a place that allows other people with different persuasions, other points of view to be heard, to be sounded, and then maybe work with some other individuals in ways that harmonize together and yet still remain and retain a part of their distinct identity. I want to give you an example of maybe one of the first times that I became an unwitting bridge. I was an undergrad in college, and I was probably a sophomore attending Boston College, which is in a suburb of the city of Boston, and quite a nice, affluent, almost bubble-like suburb. And I decided at one point that I wanted to go out and do some volunteer work. So I went on campus and I asked one of the organizations what I could do as an internship. And I was assigned a role of going once or twice a week to be a tutor to a little boy in another suburb of Boston known as Dorchester. This was a little 9-year-old who was probably high risk when it came to his performance in school, and I was just going to be there as a reading tutor. So I got on my trolley in nice little Boston College, went through Boston proper, and ended up coming out the other side and at Dorchester. Now, I had heard about Dorchester. Sometimes it was in the news. It would be the rough part of town, probably known as the opposite of Chestnut Hill, where I was going to school. And lo and behold, I meet up with this little 9-year-old boy who was so cute. Can't remember his name, but he's all grown up right now. And as I thought that I was going there to teach him how to read, he thought I was there for a completely different reason. And he was going to convince me of his mode of thinking in the same way that I wanted to convince him of the values of reading. One of the first questions he asked me was what kind of a gun I had, or if I had a gun. And I said, well, I don't have a gun. And frankly, I had never thought about buying a gun because I must have felt very safe where I was living. But he did not. And originally I remember thinking, okay, is this kid trying to change the subject because he doesn't want to learn how to read? Well, over the course of that semester, the two of us managed to see each other on a regular basis, and we developed a relationship. And obviously many conversations were extended both ways. And over the course of time, I learned why his conversation and he was actually consumed by the thought of having a gun, needing a gun. And what I realized is that where he lived, the community in which he lived, the environment, the social environment, even sometimes the family environment that he lived in, really in his mind required use of a gun because it was his protection to stay safe and to stay alive. Now, here we were coming from two different worlds. We both had different agendas. I learned so much from this little boy, from things maybe I would have never learned had I just stayed on the campus at Boston College. But I also hope that at some level, something I shared with him about my love for reading and the reason why I love to be able to use books as a means of seeing things in different ways and expanding my own thought life maybe had some small influence on his life. Both of us were a bridge to each other's worlds. Do you realize you may be somewhere, anywhere today, and there may be people, sometimes even one, in your midst you might have been ignoring, you might have been marginalizing, you might have been dissing at some level. But imagine if you were to step up with a different mindset and look to become a bridge into that person's world, to learn a little bit about their background, about their life story, about why they believe and behave the way they do. You know, some people may think it's ignorant to be a bridge. Some people may think it is just too soft to be a bridge. Others may think it takes a certain amount of courage to be a bridge, because when we choose to step out like that, we're not only extending ourselves to share ourselves with others, but we're also exposing ourselves to having our own belief systems confronted, receiving challenges to our own facts and sense of reality. We might be exposing some of our own inner fears and prejudices. We might find that after being around some other people in different environments, that our own thought life turns into scrambled eggs because things no longer add up. the way they used to. But that wonderful thing about the intention of becoming a bridge is that if you truly are on a path to living happier from the inside, which really means to be in a place of peace, peace within yourself, harmony within yourself, but also peace and harmony with other people, it could be a very powerful role to take on, even if just for a day, even if just for a moment. Well, that's been my thought with you for today, but let's hold on because there's someone else who wants to share with us what makes them happy from the inside out too. This has been Maura with Maura for You.
Hi, my name is Vicky Fulop. I come from Venezuela, and what made me happy is to be with people that love music. I have a music school, and I love to educate people in the area of music and music development. So, big hug to everyone, and I hope you come to visit one day. Clearwater, Florida, Players School of Music. Big hug. Love you all. Take care.
For more insights on living happy from the inside out, subscribe to this podcast. To learn more about Maura, visit her moraforyou.com website, where you'll find videos, blogs, books, and the Foundations of Happiness self-study e-course. Maura, 4, letter U.com, where Maura is always for you.